famous keyboard cat.
That's just one adoption story that started at a shelter. Visit theshelterpetproject.org to find a pet near you. Brought to you by Maddie's Fund, the Humane Society of the United States, and the Ad Council.
El Paso's News Radio, 690 KTSM.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. Be a part of the show by calling 915-544-KTSM. 915-544-5876. Or comment online on our stream at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. It's 4 p.m. Mountain Time, and that means it's time to talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thanks for tuning in, however you may be doing so, be it on air, online, live streaming through the free and reliable iHeartRadio app, or joining us over on the various social pages we're up on these days, facebook.com/Talk El Paso, the Talk El Paso channel over on YouTube, Twitter at Talk El Paso, or Twitch, Andrew J. Polk. Either of those names, most of the places you can find us there, you'll be able to get to us and join in on the conversation, see the video that we put out along with this, as well as particularly on a day like today when just over-the-air signal might not be the strongest with all of the stuff in the air. Got blown away practically trying to get in here today myself. And it was a nice, beautiful day this morning, wasn't it? And then all of a sudden it just turned into a literal brownout. So, hope you're staying safe and strapped down out there if you're needing to be. Again, a lot of ways to tune in and chime in here, and a lot of stuff we're focusing on here today. Start of the week, setting up quite a strong week of El Paso news gathering. Of course, elections, always on my mind, and we got some more interesting-ish results to look at, both locally and some new statewide polling, showing how some of these potential races are shaping up, particularly coming out of the actual, primary elections that we're currently in, plus where El Paso stands on it. A lot of action by some of our statewide elected officials, particularly those incumbents that are facing re-election. So that's something we'll be getting to here as well. So maybe we're having some issues with the Facebook here, may or may not be doing so, but we'll be up there as soon as we can and up in all the ways that we like to be. Anyway. Might just be one of those kind of days, no bones days, as I think is heard, but we'll still got plenty to talk about here. There's a couple of things on the top of my mind. Everything involved in election, and that has a bunch of subcategories here today, including what our local voter turnout is, the fact that Texas kind of on the struggle bus when it comes to voting in primaries in general, some reporting coming out of the Texas Tribune on that, plus more analysis coming out of other local outlets about the home prices and what's going on with that, how much we were definitely in our cups last year as we look at a lot of possibilities for local bars and restaurants to really bring in the revenue from alcohol sales, plus that potential for mayor powers and city elections going on the ballot, the headline there from El Paso Inc. So a bunch of things on the docket here today. Plus, just as a side note, more reporting from the Associated Press and the Arizona Daily Star. As we talked about last week, there's some questions came about the reporting or availability of the reporting on it, I should say, when it came to the use of the surplus federal border wall materials to now go into the state wall. John Browsleton kind of echoing what I was thinking here, that winter is officially over here in El Paso because we're in that early spring weather when we might technically live in New Mexico now, because I feel like I'm pretty well covered. And it was out a little bit earlier today at a mattress firm in support of their President's Day sales. And I feel like I might be an extra layer of crud on me. I feel like I'm lightly dusted at this point because, just a lot of dirt out there. I'm probably going to be coughing up dirt balls here for the rest of the day. It makes me feel like. So just hope you stay safe out there. Make sure to turn on your lights if you're out on the road and you're still in those brownout conditions, because it comes on fast and you want to make sure other people can hear you and see you, more importantly, hear us here on the radio. So let's talk elections here briefly, as we'll touch on a couple of times. Looking at El Paso, voter turnout as it stands as of the first full week of early voting ending last week, as of day 7, according to the El Paso County vote, epcountyvotes.com, the office there, the El Paso County Elections Department, the correct way to say it, looking at just shy of about 3% of registered voters out there. So I'm going to choose to be optimistic about this, that we are already at levels we have been in our last 2 elections. Whether or not I am going to be then still shamed by this remains to be seen. But, well, we got 7 days left, better part of this week, except for, I believe, Sunday, essentially, before early voting then comes on. So technically, 8 days from now, but 7 days, 14 hours, and 48 minutes, according to the countdown clock over at epcountyvotes.com. So got plenty of time to cast your ballot when it comes to all of these issues. And just as a reminder, if you want to see all of the interviews we've done with the current and previous candidates that we've had on the show, including most of the major candidates for the gubernatorial seat, hoping to or going to challenge Governor Greg Abbott over his incumbency to unseat him. Again, from the right, we have interviews that up there with retired Colonel Alan West, with Don Huffines, and even with Chad Prather, if you want to go and see those. Probably have to clip them out a little bit better. But also, just notice here right coming into the show, I am often fascinated to see who is putting in their advertisements, and the fact that Eva Guzman has stepped that up is very interesting. That one coming in right before the show, I did notice that. Thought I'd heard it going by a little bit earlier, so finally tracked it down and saw it coming up right there. So the amount of focus happening from these big statewide campaigns for an area that has been pretty easily to say overlooked previously. I want to say that has been a little bit of a feature of Governor Greg Abbott's, even since his candidacy, because he came out here, and if I'm not mistaken, I mean, the picture is kind of a hard one to forget, that he actually campaigned here in El Paso with Chuck Norris. Now, if I imagine that, if that was like a fever dream I have, someone correct me, but it's still, I mean, that's a serious kind of, serious amount of, focus on El Paso that I feel it just really wasn't that. Like, I can't even really remember, at least in my time covering things or in talking about issues, that, the previous governor, Rick Perry, had even come to El Paso. It was often kind of a stark juxtaposition for me, even just being in local news, how often we would see the governor not be here. Meanwhile, it felt like back in the time when Susana Martinez was the governor of New Mexico, was coming to most of the major business openings happening out at Santa Teresa. So just kind of a stark relief of the focus on our area from state leadership here. John Browse will bring up another story that is definitely in the background of a lot of what I'm thinking about right now, but we'll keep it El Paso focused here for today until other notice. Basically, him saying that some really cheap vacations now available in Ukraine this week. They might actually pay you depending on what you're signing up for. Make sure to read the bottom dotted line, particularly if you're looking at those 2 new places in the Donbass. I'm not even going to try to say them because I am not a Russian or Ukrainian speaker, but probably a lot of cheap trips, cheap real estate, and all the lead you can eat coming to some of those areas soon. But got my eye on it, but it's a focus on the issues that we do here. So elections, almost always on my mind. No surprise there. New primary and polling numbers coming out this week as well. So even as we're looking at a little bit of, it's hard to call it even an increase in voting, but we're on track to be better than we have recently, and maybe I can stop screaming about it. Maybe I'll just have a new number to scream about, and we'll all enjoy that as we absolutely do here. But new numbers coming out as we're also on the cusp of those final pre-election campaign finance reports. So setting the stage for how this is looking. So getting into that more, what that presumed showdown is going to look like between the presumptive nominees or returning, continuing on as the incumbent seats, plus the best-known Democrat within the state. That race, what the latest polling is there, plus what it actually looks like for the primaries. So going to take that first break right now. Listen to Talk El Paso here on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. And coming out of this break, getting more of that polling, plus some of those other issues focusing us around here, plus how we shape up compared to the state on average. All that and more after this break. More Talk El Paso.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
Checking El Paso roadways, doing pretty good right now. A couple of crashes, McRae Boulevard, just south of Montwood. Watch for an injury accident slowing traffic. On Vista del Sol, just north of Zaragoza, at Henry Phillips Drive, there's an accident that is slowing traffic in all directions. Take Pelicano as an alternate. Biggest delay in the freeways is in the Low Valley I-10 westbound between Horizon and Eastlake. Look for 17-minute delays. Carrie Edwards, El Paso traffic.
This report is sponsored by Texas Secretary of State. Elections are coming up, Texas. Are you vote ready? Find all the information you need about the approved IDs and important dates at votetexas.gov today. Powered by the Texas Secretary of State.
It's Ram Truck Month at Silent Park Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, Ram, Fiat. Don't wait for your tax refund. Buy now and get huge savings with zero down. Save thousands in interest with zero APR for 72 months on all new 2022 Dodge Charger, SXT, and GT models. Huge selection of new cars, trucks, and SUVs with huge savings. 2022 Ram trucks with 2.9% APR for 72 months. Zero down. Zero payments for 90 days. Get her done. Upside down in your trade? We want it. Even if you owe thousands more than it's worth. We've partnered with even more aggressive lenders with great rates and terms for good credit, or even if your credit is less than perfect. The all-new Silent Park Dodge Certified Pre-Owned Supercenter has a great selection with more arriving daily. All military personnel and all first responders receive an additional discount. Thank you for your service. Silent Park Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, Ram, Fiat. Where buying a car is still fun. At I-10 at Silent Park Drive or online at silentparkdodge.com. Estamos en tu esquina, El Paso. El Paso Strong. Includes factory rebate and dealer discount plus TTNL, 0 APR, $13.89 per thousand finance. Also like vehicles with full credit. Offers not combined.
Hey, Mario Courtney Lopez here. We know life's moments are definitely better together.
And Smart Mouth mouthwash gives us the confidence to always be ready to make the most of these moments.
Whether in studio, on the red carpet, or around the house, having the confidence to get close is amazing.
Our lives are better together with Smart Mouth. Just 2 rinses a day means fresh breath for 24 hours.
Find it at your favorite drug, grocery, or supercenter store, or save 20% at smartmouth.com/radio.
Never ordered food for work. You understand. It's different. There's just so much more at stake. Whether it's a meeting, a client call, or lunch with the office that has to arrive at the actual lunchtime, food for work has to work. That's why there's Easy Cater. Food that's on time and as ordered from over 82,000 restaurants. And if there's a problem, rare, you can reach someone in seconds.
Thank you for calling Easy Cater.
Some food just doesn't work at work, but Easy Cater just does. Order 24/7 at easycater.com.
If you see something, why do you say something?
I see safe for my friends.
For my community.
For everyone here. We all have something worth protecting, a why that unifies us. Report suspicious activity to local authorities. If you see something, say something.
News Radio 690 KTSM.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thanks for tuning in, however you may be doing so, be it on air, online, live streaming through the free and reliable iHeartRadio app, or joining us over on the various social pages that we got these days, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Twitch. Comments coming in there. Leroy Chuck tuning in right now, and John Brazelton bringing up his favorite subject as well, that for El Paso residents who like murals, there's a new city block available for viewing downtown. Yeah, part of an event that happened over this past weekend, I do believe, with some new work happening on that. So if you like public art, go see it. If you like non-public supported public art, I guess might be a way to put it here, as I believe is part of the growth that happens. You can go see it for yourself as well. So yeah, I like talking about the things going on in and around town. The election's definitely a focus of mine, but there's some of the other things we're looking at. Some other potential elections coming up involving mayor and city council powers. But one of the interesting ones, a very detailed analysis done by El Paso Inc., looking at the establishments that dominated booze sales in 2021. And, I mean, I've been to my fair share. Shout out to Michael Tipton for his birthday and the couple of brewers who went out this past weekend as well. But there was a huge bump in sales when it came to alcohol, just even between years. Of course, 2020 was a pretty bad one. The TABC reported, and the state of Texas reported about $85 million in gross sales tax from alcoholic beverages coming out of our local area. Compare that to 2019, where it was $130 million. But 2021, more than $200 million came out of bars. So that kind of creeping sense that you may have had about people, well, wanting to get out, wanting to go do stuff, wanting to go to a damn bar, you were correct, very obviously. And then the further list that they go into about who actually saw the best of it, just rounding out the top 5 here, Gringo Theory, Ojos Locos, Top Golf, Hotel Paso del Norte, and the Pockets on Zaragoza. Interesting spread of them there. Top Golf is the one that I guess surprised me the most, but now that I think about it, probably the best position to have dealt with the pandemic. Essentially, I mean, they're an open-air bar that has its own table service when you really think about it, I guess. But so they had the biggest Texas mixed beverage gross receipts tax. So this is beyond just beer. This is the whole, mixed drink alcohol, hard liquors kind of situation there. So Leroy Chuck saying, I can see plenty of art around town. Just look at the backside of every stop sign here. Leroy Chuck on that point, though, saying, haven't heard anything about the health issues from alcohol consumptions. Don't worry, you'll see the effects in 20 years. I guess it is a little bit of a mixed bag when you start talking about this. I am happy that people are participating with, most of these local places. And so, therefore, kind of the stuff I like talking about and seeing people support that is important here. But everything in moderation, even moderation sometimes. Be safe out there. Absolutely. Okay, and as a clarifier there for that, it is based on sales of spirits, beer, and wine, does not include food sales. So that is just the booze. And Gringo Theory pulling in just the gross receipts tax on mixed beverages, $2.8 million. That is a lot. You know what? It makes a little bit more sense now, because I do recall, what was it, last summer when we had that spate of rains that allowed the desert to turn green? There was at least one bar in town that I saw a picture of that was flooded about up to the ankles, and people were still sitting there drinking. So maybe we're a little bit more committed to this to potentially a slightly concerning level. But hey, people going out, support local. If you're going to do it, at least do support local in the meantime here. So speaking about supporting local, what we're looking at when it comes to these elections, again, we're at about just shy of 3% locally, but this is not something that is apparently, at least in this type of election, unique to El Paso. Texas Tribune looking that in almost all primaries, 2018, 2020, and even the current one now, it is difficult to get people out. In 2018, 82% of people just didn't vote. And even in 2020, that, nice, simple, not at all contentious election, in the primaries for that, barely a quarter of people actually bothered to head to the polls for that. And we're on track for, well, actually it looks like El Paso's more or less on the statewide trend for that one, with statewide about 2.7% as of February 17th, the latest numbers there compiled by the Texas Tribune. So we're on track. But the only flip thing is that the Republican versus Democrat turnout is about flipped here locally. It's about 2-1, Democrats to Republicans, at least based on who is voting in what primary. I am aware of more than a couple of people who are deciding that they are not going to so much vote for who they want, but are going to vote rather against who they don't want, and are thereby going in the other primary. Though the interesting wrinkle that also comes up with that is we've seen at least a couple of ads here locally about the whole wolf in sheep's clothing idea. I feel like I've seen that in a couple of races now. Actually brought up that, they're running under this ballot, but they previously voted on that other ballot. So what does that tell you, El Paso? Sorry, dipped into my wrestler announcer voice there, because that's the kind of way when I read those kind of ads, that's how I think of it in the back of my head, as you better look out, brother. Anyway, that's just something to consider if you're ever going to be doing office, if you're doing this kind of vote freaking, I guess is a way I've heard it put. Anyway, what this other new polling that has come out besides just the results here, specifically a poll done by University of Texas at Tyler and the Dallas Dallas News, looking at another pretty in favor of the presumptive nominees on the Republican and Democrat side of the ballot for the governor's office. Ken Paxton is another one that is also being discussed here. Again, I just love hearing the contention and what comes in the advertisements from it. But in the governor's race, it is pretty clearly going to be a lock for the best known people involved in it. This is not a discussion of the merits of these candidates, mind you, but just looking at the polling, looking at the current trajectory, and with a week to go, the closer we get to it, the more it looks like this will be the possibility, though we're still looking at some of these other conversations with these candidates, don't you worry. But it does seem very likely, better odds than not, that Governor Greg Abbott will secure the nomination to go on to seek his next term of office as Texas's governor, and that, well, Robert Francis Beto O'Rourke, having the only support out of really any Democrat in the state, will very likely become the nominee as well, looking at about a 7% spread of Abbott over O'Rourke. So technically a little bit closer, still outside of the margin of error, I think is an important thing to point out, but a little bit closer than some previous ones. Now, this doesn't necessarily bode that well for the O'Rourke campaign, because among independents, and this was a poll of registered voters, approximately primarily white, about a third Latino, and a minority black within this, showing that there is a strong support for Abbott in going into this. He's got a virtual lock, according to this poll, on the nomination, but that in between the two of them, that O'Rourke, looking at support, again, falling about 7 points behind, specifically 45% in favor of the governor, 38% in favor of the former El Paso congressman. But there was also about 16% say they would vote for someone else. So that's kind of that undecided pool we're looking at. So that could make a difference. But even within that, amongst the independents, a little bit closer, but Abbott looking to get about 36% opposed to about 29% in favor of O'Rourke, of that independent, not strongly identifying as one part of the other poll. So given particularly these campaign finance, that's what I'm really wanting to look at tomorrow once those come out, and we'll definitely get into those on the show, because the level of support that has come in for these individual candidates is a little bit of a backdoor look at how much people will actually then support them at the polls, or at the very least, once we get out of this primary, it really does kind of seem, even with all the airtime that even just on this station and program we have heard out of the Abbott campaign, kind of been holding back a little bit. So I wonder, there are some analyses out there saying that this will be the major part of the spending will be in the primary, and then into the general, it will probably wane off. I gotta disagree with that a bit, because just looking what I'm seeing at, I mean, Abbott has a massive war chest, and no, I don't think he'll blow it entirely on any one particular race unless things are going really badly for him, which I will be very surprised if that comes up. But he's still sitting on literal tens of millions of dollars. So this last pre-primary election, fundraising numbers that they're required to put out will give us the best snapshot to, has he really been holding back ahead of this primary? Because, again, I have not heard a spot, an advertisement, outside of some vague statements that definitely don't get as much play when it comes to the general public, to actually mention an opponent. Everything I've seen and heard has been focused on the administration, the current administration in D.C. and the White House, or O'Rourke. That's basically been it. Those have been the only opponents even being mentioned. Very different story when you end up in some of these slightly down ballot races, particularly Ken Paxton, according to this latest poll, facing a potential runoff because he's not going to be able to break that 50%. Still strongly in the lead within that, but not quite strongly enough to quash the competition amongst the challengers here, including previous guests on the show, George P. Bush, Evos Guzman, and more. So there's more to happen there, and that will probably be another election we're looking at down the line. So stay tuned for that. So we got to take that next break of the hour right now. Coming back, we'll get into some more of these issues affecting us here in the Borderland, including those look at the affordability of houses within the Borderland and what that means for the population. Not really great, I got to say here, but all that and more coming up here after this break. You're tuned into Talk El Paso here on News Radio 690 KTSM, and your host, Andrew J. Polk. Coming up, more talk about what we got going on here. Plus, we'll open up those phone lines here in a little bit, so stay tuned. Back after this break with more. Don't go anywhere.
El Paso's News Radio 690 KTSM.
I'm Justin Cree with your CBS 4 News Update. A popular downtown bar continues to remain closed after flames engulfed the DeSoto Hotel 2 weeks ago. The Reagan shares a wall with the historic hotel, and the general manager says after staying closed due to safety concerns, there could be light at the end of the tunnel. They just got the okay to turn the gas back on, which is the first step in the reopening process. While there's not a set date yet, they're hoping to reopen the bar sometime this week. As for those changes to the menu and hours, the general manager said those will roll out in another 2 to 3 weeks. There could be a new leader at the Socorro Independent School District by the end of today. The position has been open since May. Then former Superintendent Dr. Jose Espinoza resigned. This past weekend, we talked with some parents in the SISD community on what they would want to see. The majority saying a leader with integrity and honesty. A finalist could be announced today. We'll be sure to keep you updated both on air and online when that does happen. With your CBS 4 News Update, I'm Justin Cree.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
The I-10 westbound is slow and go in the Low Valley between Horizon and Eastlake with 15-plus minute delays. Loop 375 southbound at Iron Medics. Watch for a stalled vehicle blocking the right shoulder. Stay left. Police are on the scene of an accident at Hercules Avenue east of Diana, and a blowing dust advisory is now in effect until 6 o'clock tonight for El Paso. Carrie Edwards, El Paso Traffic.
Gusty winds and the potential for blowing dust will be possible over the next few days as our next storm system approaches from the west. Expect a few clouds tonight with breezy conditions, along with overnight lows near 40 degrees by Tuesday morning. Coming up tonight, we'll time out our next weather maker, plus the changes it'll bring by the end of the week. From the KFOX 14 Severe Weather Center, I'm meteorologist Kira Miner.
This report is sponsored by Sylvania. On dark, foggy roads, do your fog lights provide the visibility you need? Upgrade to LEDs from Sylvania, the leader in automotive lighting. Experience how advanced optical design leads to superior down-road clarity. Visit the Sylvania website to find your LED bulbs today.
What happens if we find the home we want, but somebody else just got to it quicker? What if we can't sell our existing home on time and we get stuck with 2 mortgages? I know. I've been there, and I have a solution. Listen carefully. You just need to call Brian Birds of eXp Realty. He'll guarantee your home will sell on time, or he's going to buy it himself. You'll get the home you want, and you don't have to worry about getting stuck with the burden of 2 mortgages. Hundreds of home sellers and renters trust Brian, and you can trust him as well. Connect personally with Brian today at 751-1500. That's 751-1500. Or go to brianbirds.com. That's Brian, BURDS.com.
Hey, El Paso, have you heard? Sell your home guarantee. Call Brian Birds. Go to brianbirds.com.
Hey guys, it's Edge Martinez. My family's gathering in the kitchen. It's our favorite place to catch up. Keep germs out. I use Lysol on countertops, tables, and the fridge handle. Nothing kills more viruses on more surfaces than Lysol disinfectant spray. Lysol, what it takes to protect. Use as direct.
Looking for a great deal on blinds, shades, and shutters? Save 50% off any order during Blindster.com's President's Day sale. Blindster offers custom wood and faux wood blinds, roller shades, cellular shades, even custom plantation shutters. And they're all 50% off for a limited time. Blindster.com. This report is sponsored by Blindster.
Stay informed at KTSMradio.com.
Kids dream big. Protect your child's dreams by keeping them healthy. If your son or daughter is age 11 or 12, the American Cancer Society recommends giving them the HPV vaccine to help prevent HPV cancers later. Learn more at cancer.org/dreambig.
News Radio 690 KTSM El Paso.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, call 915-544-KTSM or follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you guys so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thanks for tuning in, however you may be doing so. A lot of ways you can chime in and tune into the show. We got the comments going on right now, facebook.com/Talk El Paso, the main one there. But for those of you on the road, really keep your eyes on what road you can see right now. It's brown out for me earlier. Don't have a window here in the studio, so hope it's gotten better, but kind of have to hold my breath, I guess, given how dusty it is out there. Anyway, just stay safe out there and be careful out on the roads. But if you're able to, you can chime in over on our social media, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Twitch. We got a Calvin Williams chiming in right now. Good afternoon to you as well. We also have a Leroy Chuck John Browson chiming in there, all amongst others tuning in. So talking a little bit about these polling numbers and what it shows here, that there is a pretty strong look on the people you would expect to pass through to these elections, very strongly in favor of them. Some of them are just pretty stark, actually. The only one that is mildly surprising, again, is that possibility that Ken Paxton, for those who are going to vote in the Republican primary, probably facing a runoff out of it. Specifically, looking over total, again, the polling coming out from the University of Texas and Tyler and Dallas News, looking at Ken Paxton with about 30 to 40%, depending on whether it's certain or probably, the question being asked here, versus the next closest one looking at being George P. Bush, the current Texas Land Commissioner, and yes, a very well-positioned name within Texas, nephew of the former president, I believe is the correct familial relation there. But Eva Guzman, not outside of striking distance either, about 13%, and Louis Gohmert, surprisingly enough, looking the lowest there with roughly 7%. But of those polled as part of this, there is also the about 16% saying don't know. So it's not for certain there at all. Dan Patrick, the other one we hadn't totally mentioned yet, looking pretty strong there. I mean, no one else is even polling in double digits against him, with a strong 54% total amount of people saying that they are more likely to support him across independents and Republicans. And the strongest category there against him would be don't know, about 31%. So it is interesting in some of the popularity of him, even within his party, about the idea of how the governor and lieutenant governor have been doing. Abbott, amongst Republicans anyway, incredibly popular. The question here, part of the survey, as part of your evaluation, would you rate the governor favorably or poorly on his outlook for Texas? 81% amongst Republicans and even 29% amongst Democrats, about 53% of total across all of the groups here. So not terrifically surprising here. But then when it comes to the lieutenant governor, and the same thing when it comes to how he's handling his job as lieutenant governor, Republicans put him strongly approve at 30%, 38% as just simple approve, and kind of the inverse of that when you get to the Democrat side. So he's got people who like him and people who are okay with him, but there's also people who are, there's not really anyone else for him, is what some of this polling looks like. And given some of the statements also that the governor, lieutenant governor specifically, has made, the biggest kerfuffle happening kind of even over the weekend over his statements about, tenure, and specifically how it ends up relating to major subjects like critical race theory. Tenure has been a bit of a bugaboo for a while now, and a lot of other states. It comes up here a decent amount, I do feel, as the idea of, how do we get policy and educational agendas we want passed? How do we get that done? Well, let's get rid of tenure. It comes up, I feel like, a decent amount. And so Patrick putting that forth just before the weekend, and that has really created a lot of response here amongst others. Even El Paso Matters talking with local faculty and staff at the University of Texas at El Paso, saying that this is a political ploy being called out by some of the faculty there. And so again, the idea of Patrick's statement here: tenure professors must not be able to hide behind the phrase academic freedom and then proceed to poison the minds of our next generation. Universities are being taken over by tenured left professors, and it is high time that more oversight is provided. And saying specifically more that he will work to change tenure reviews from every 6 years to annually, and will make teaching critical race theory cause for revoking tenure. So a lot of interesting reactions and responses happening to that. That becoming one of the focal points for his campaign as we inch closer to this election. On the flip side, we talked a decent amount about Abbott and the things that he is focused on. But when it comes to Paxton, his major, campaign moves outside of his slightly more visibility within some of these news conferences has been about lawsuits. Like just before the weekend, in fact, announcing a couple more against the Biden administration in a variety of ways. And one of the stories we actually got up over on our website right now, KTSMradio.com, that Paxton announces investigation into TikTok, specifically that it may be complicit in child exploitation and sex trafficking, amongst other serious crimes, and that they're requesting documents from TikTok's parent company about procedures to prevent and report child exploitation. So I feel like it has been a pretty decent flurry of filings coming out of the Attorney General's office, really over this last 6 months is really in sharp focus. Haven't seen a good analysis on what the over-under is on how many before to now, but just in my email, because I am on all these lists and get the alerts and have signed up for them myself, just pretty constantly, almost if not quite daily, new actions coming out of there. So that seems to be essentially the strategy that's given the commentary that has come from his opponents and putting into stark relief some of his concerns about integrity of office, corruption, investigations, etc. Ken Paxton's response appears, for at least my semi-trained opinion, to be nose to the grindstone. Let's keep pumping out new things to show people that we are doing what they want us to, at least for this partisan primary. I've actually been getting a little bit of mail to my house. I get a little bit from all sides here because they usually don't know what to do with me. Mail from some of the Democrat Attorney General candidates, but not many of them have broken through the din. And I was actually a little bit surprised to get specifically a mailer about the Attorney General office because, well, how much do you focus on that in your daily life here? So whether or not it'll actually have an effect here, again, just bulk mailers kind of fascinate me and how they exist in this common day and age. And they can really tell you more about what strategy a campaign is looking for, whether they are just going for the big and flashy, if they're really trying to drill down to individual voters that they feel for whatever reason may or may not be likely to actually vote for them and getting them literally where they live. The theories abound on how to best manage this. Whether or not it works, we'll only be able to tell at the ballot box here. I'm not sure it worked for me because I meant to bring that with me here. I don't have it in front of me, and I could not tell you the name of that person who sent me that mailer. So good luck to them and Godspeed. They're probably going to need it. I mean, they still are looking at the specter of there not having been a statewide Democrat elected in, let's just call it generation at this point, because that's essentially where we're at. So any of them, the much vaunted idea of a blue wave forming in any of our recent elections, I think that there has been a lot of taken for grantedness of certain communities, frankly, like ours, that they will go predictably one way or the other, and that has very much been a focus of some of the statewide campaigning, particularly by statewide Republicans. I mean, the governor announced his campaign officially while in a border community. So the focus on that and the blue wall that has sometimes been put, that might be the more realistic political narrative to come true out of this current election, whether that can be cracked or not. And I mean, we've also got the whole new redistricting that has come into place. There are a lot of factors going into this election that we'll be keeping a pretty close eye on to see how this is going to work out and who is actually going to be able to hold power and what their constraints are going to be. Amongst other things, even though he looks a pretty solid lock for it, Dan Patrick has gotten some flack even from his own side of the aisle on how he has managed things like, well, the Texas Senate, amongst others. Whether or not that actually matters to the common voter, conversation we've also had, is even the way things are being campaigned on. Does that resonate with the average voter? A lot, some, yes, but a lot of it, particularly on the Democrat side, frankly, has come out as a resounding meh. That people, sure, it's not unimportant, but it's not in the top 5 or 10, so ramp it up is the kind of message being received here. Again, as we are circling closer to actual election day and the end of early voting, should be able to see how many people at least turned out by when we get to election day to get a clearer idea of then how many may actually then go out to the polls when it comes to election day. It has usually been that it'll be about 50-50. 50% of those of the eventual turnout will go out during early voting, and then the other half will then go out and actually vote during election day. So just as a quick note on that, as you are considering your plan to go vote, whether you've made it or not, that you can vote any of the election polling places on election day itself or any of them during early voting. Probably going to do early voting myself here still because it's just that much simpler, and some of the numbers people are telling us, a lot of ease of voting in and out within dozen minutes or so. Both a good and a bad thing, I guess, when you consider it. So a few of the topics we're focused on here today: the elections, the economy of our area. Coming out of this next break, we'll probably need to get to that home price issue that I mentioned and a whole lot more. So do for that next break right now. And, we'll go ahead and open up that phone line as we do during this point in the show. So if you're wanting to call in, that number to do so is 915-544-5876, 544-KTSM. Back after this break with more Talk El Paso. You're on News Radio 690 KTSM.
News Radio 690. Traffic all day.
El Paso freeway's looking pretty good for President's Day, except for the I-10 westbound between Horizon and Eastlake with 15-minute delays, slow and go traffic there. And if you're on the I-10 eastbound, want to access the 54 Patriot northbound, that ramp is closed. And a blowing dust advisory in effect till 6 o'clock tonight. Visibility can be as low as a quarter mile with blowing dust. Avoid driving in areas of blowing dust and low visibility. Carrie Edwards, El Paso Traffic.
This report is sponsored by Texas Secretary of State. Elections are coming up, Texas. Are you vote ready? Find all the information you need about the approved IDs and important dates at votetexas.gov today. Powered by the Texas Secretary of State.
What's done more to improve overall health and wellness, modern medicine or personal hygiene? Actually, it's both. But considering that bathing went mainstream in the 1800s and brushing your teeth in the 1900s, isn't it time for something new, like cleaning your nose? After all, your nose is the body's air filter for trapping dirt and germs, the first line of defense against allergens, bacteria, and viruses from getting into your lungs. But how do you clean your nose? With Novage. Novage isn't medicine, it's more like plumbing. Novage uses powered suction to pull saline in one nostril to the very back of the nose where germs can get trapped and multiply, and then out the other nostril, flushing out mucus and microbes so you can breathe better, sleep deeper, snore less, and stay healthier. Join over 2 million others and find out for yourself how refreshing and easy to use Novage is. At Novage.com, Walgreens, CVS, Rite Aid, Bed Bath, and Target. Novage. Clean nose, healthy life.
Here's Joe Biden's strategy for the border crisis.
There will not be another foot of wall constructed in my administration. In the first 100 days of my administration, no one will be deported at all.
Biden's reckless border policies have emboldened dangerous drug cartels. Listen to Tarrant County Sheriff Bill Wayburn.
There's a clear and present danger. It's deadly fentanyl, and it's killing our kids. How's it getting here? Through our southern border. That's why Governor Abbott's deployed the National Guard to assist law enforcement at the border. He's given us new authority to arrest trespassers. He's increased jail capacity to handle criminal arrests. Joe Biden should be securing this border, but he won't. That's why Governor Abbott is getting the job done.
Governor Abbott is endorsed by the National Border Patrol Council. On March 1st, vote for Governor Greg Abbott, securing the future of Texas.
Political ad paid for by Texans for Greg Abbott.
Are you a safe driver? Are you looking to save money? With DriveWise from Allstate, the safer you drive, the more you can save. At Allstate, better protection costs a whole lot less. Visit allstate.com or call an agent for a quote today.
El Paso's News Radio 690 KTSM.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, call 915-544-KTSM or follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thanks for tuning in, however you may be doing so. A lot of ways to interact with the show. We do have that phone line open right now. That number to call, 915-544-5876-544-KTSM, as we're setting the table for the week with some of those big stories. And yes, as the comments are coming in, I'm very much following what's coming out of the eastern part of Ukraine here. Going to try to pronounce that the Donetsk and Lugansk regions, potential breakaway republics, and Russian troops potentially being ordered into those to support quote-unquote peacekeeping operations. Yeah, very much focused on that, but in the meantime, while that is still developing, a lot of stuff to focus on here in our area. I actually did find that mailer that I mentioned here, was shoved at the bottom of my bag here, from Rochelle Garza, hoping to become Texas Attorney General. See how that works out for them. Statewide here, because until the conventional wisdom is overridden, it's still going to hold decently well. I'm not sure I could fathom running as a Democrat in Texas in this current environment, but I guess, hey, that's what it takes. And it's hard to deny the impact that had down ballot out of the previous O'Rourke campaign, statewide anyway, whether or not that will continue or that has been largely dealt with when it comes with statewide Republicans. Another one of the big questions I'm looking at for this campaign. So Joey Carlson promoting Don Huffines, I believe, not Abbott for governor, calling for a Wake Up El Paso. Huffline's not doing the greatest, again, according to the recent polling here. Well, he could be doing better against Abbott in this likely voting area. Abbott looking a pretty solid 60% of overall turnout. No opponent breaking double digits against him. The best one, to put it this way, again, the polling coming out from Dallas Morning News and University of Texas at Tyler, is Alan West doing the best. The next one, actually, Rick Perry, who is not that Rick Perry, but a different one, same name. And then we look at Danny Harrison, Don Huffines, and Chad Prather in a statistical tie at 3% each. So there are some, frankly, it might just be too crowded of a field to allow anyone to really dominate against the very well-known and decently within his own party popular governor. Again, about 80% of Republicans, according to this latest poll, is saying that they are happy with the way the governor has been handling various things. I think the lowest was about 74% when it came to handling crises. So I think it's within that 30%, essentially, that we are looking at those opponents, trying to find out those wedge issues we have talked about. Whether that has been successful or not, definitely debatable. I mean, I don't know how I would take it as a potential campaigner against an established candidate if they aren't even paying attention to you in anything. I mean, literally, someone please send me an ad if you have heard it, if there is anything being said against any other candidate on the Republican ballot in this primary for governor, because I just haven't. And Gavin Williams, again, continuing his campaign that if you can't decide, write his name in on the ballot. John Brownson with an interesting comment, calling out a different local commentator here, but that they must be busy in his off time, that he keeps getting national campaign literature from the National Democratic Campaign Committee, and that hell will freeze over before he decides to donate to them. And I guess if you have ever donated to any campaign or are an active voter in any way, they might just be willing to send it to you, though. Calvin Williams chiming in. If you want $100 worth of mail, just donate $10 to any campaign. And I might add on there practically ever, because that information, it was almost, if I want to cast back in time a little bit further here, when you get to like the John Dean campaign, that soundbite that will live forever in my head, that was one of the first like real internet-based campaigns, because I mean he disappeared almost soundly after that, but that he was able to build up that machine, and that is more or less, to my understanding, not having actually worked in campaigns, given the work that we do here, has essentially been absorbed by almost every other major campaign that see success, has done the exact same thing. So building up that metadata, the information on how to contact, likelihood, etc., of a voting base, almost as important as, like, say, going out and knocking on doors, because yes, money isn't the most important thing. It certainly makes everything downstream a hell of a lot easier when it comes to these campaigns. So I do think that two major currents that we're going to be seeing within Texas here is those campaigns able to actually get out and contact and connect with individual voters probably going to be doing better, and that is seemingly a focus. I get way too many texts from too many campaigns saying, hey, can you come out and help us knock on doors today? And I've just even stopped responding and being like, dude, I am not in a position to be able to do that given the work we do here, but they keep sending them. So you want to get $100 worth of automated texts at any point, sign up for any electorate voter information thing ever, and you'll be in the same position I am. So that has certainly been a focus, and whether or not the fundraising actually supports that or follows through or keeps in pace with it is another interesting one. But also just are people able to focus on those wedge issues? Two of the major things I'm looking at with these elections, because that was, I think, for 2020 itself, I mean, there was a lot of comparison being made between the national campaigns, very specifically the differences between the rallies for former President Donald Trump and the limited or that weird car rally appearance that happened with current President Biden, as showing a different level of support here. And of course, the simple answer at that point was that those willing to go out probably more likely to vote Republican in that place, and those not willing to go out and wanting to virtually seemingly more willing to vote Democrat in that way. But I don't think that held quite true here in Texas, or at the very least, the numbers shifted, because those that were contacted in person, I want a university to do like a concrete study on this, because this is my supposition, but I haven't seen any true research data on it, that of those that were contacted in person, had the door knock or had an in-person event they went to, etc., were they more likely to A, vote, and B, vote for the person who actually went out and did that for them? Those are the questions that I want to see, but my contention is that for this election, for the one that we are currently in, and of course the upcoming one that this sets up in November, that is made a difference in Texas. At the very least, that might be, in essence, the cracking of the blue wall is actually getting out and talking with them. I had years ago a relative in upstate New York that wasn't totally aligned with the politics there, but essentially said that, yeah, as long as the then Senator Hillary Clinton comes out and shakes my hand every year, I'll keep voting for her. Otherwise, I'll probably vote for someone else. I'm not saying it's the best discourse to be had when it comes to making an electoral decision, but I've also heard, I guess, much, much, much worse. Anyway, a lot of talk being done about here. Ed Clore asking about Tony or Alma for District 23. I've been getting a little bit of detail on that one as well. We've stepped a toe into the Texas 23rd Congressional District, but let me see if that one's on the poll here. I actually didn't go that far down. Not sure if this one's going to be covered within it, because I believe this was a statewide poll, but, well, yeah, let me give a little deeper dive into that to see what we got there. And Calvin Williams again saying, if you can't decide, write my name here. Due for that last break of this hour. We're coming back next hour with more talk about this. Again, we do have that phone line open if you're wanting to chime in that fashion. 915-544-5876, 544 KTSM. And then back after this break with more Talk El Paso after the news at the top of the hour here on News Radio 690 KTSM.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
El Paso Freeway's looking pretty good for President's Day, except for the I-10 westbound between Horizon and Eastlake, with 15-minute delays, slow and go traffic there. And if you're on the I-10 eastbound, want to access the 54 Patriot northbound, that ramp is closed. And a blowing dust advisory in effect till 6 o'clock tonight. Visibility can be as low as a quarter mile with blowing dust. Avoid driving in areas of blowing dust and low visibility. Carrie Edwards, El Paso Traffic.
It's Ram Truck Month at Sunlight Park Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, Ram, Fiat. Don't wait for your tax refund. Buy now and get huge savings with zero down. Save thousands in interest with zero APR for 72 months on all new 2022 Dodge Charger, SXT, and GT models. Huge selection of new cars, trucks, and SUVs with huge savings. 2022 Ram trucks with 2.9% APR for 72 months. Zero down. Zero payments for 90 days. Get her done. Upside down in your trade? We want it. Even if you owe thousands more than it's worth. We've partnered with even more aggressive lenders with great rates and terms for good credit, or even if your credit is less than perfect. The all-new Sunlight Park Dodge Certified Pre-Owned Supercenter has a great selection with more arriving daily. All military personnel and all first responders receive an additional discount. Thank you for your service. Sunlight Park Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, Ram, Fiat. Where buying a car is still fun. At I-10 at Sunlight Park Drive or online at sunlightparkdodge.com. Estamos en tu esquina, El Paso. El Paso Strong. Includes factory rebate and dealer discount plus TTNL. Zero APRs, $13.89 per thousand finance. Also like vehicles with approved credit. Offers not combined.
I loved playing high school sports. I loved the competition, the camaraderie, the bands, the crowds, all the pageantry, and I wanted to keep playing. But I graduated. No colleges called, and neither did the pros. So, to stay close to the game I loved, I decided to become a high school official. You know, a referee. When I played high school sports, I learned the importance of integrity, good sportsmanship, and respect for the rules. Now, as a high school official, I get to help model these same values to others. Maybe the colleges and the pros didn't call, but the kids in Texas did. And now, I'm enjoying the competition, the camaraderie, the bands, the crowds, and all the pageantry of high school sports all over again.
This message presented by the Texas University Interscholastic League and the Texas High School Athletic Directors Association.
Always just minutes away from the latest news around town and around the world.
You need to know what's going on.
News Radio 690 KTSM. News on the hour and the half. Traffic and weather all day. News Radio 690 is KTSM AM El Paso, an iHeart radio station.
NBC News Radio, I'm Brian Shook. Russian President Vladimir Putin is ordering the country's troops to go into separatist-held portions of eastern Ukraine. The decree Putin signed Monday ordered Russian armed forces to perform peacekeeping functions. CNN reports the U.S. expects troops could start moving as soon as tonight. Pentagon Press Secretary John Kirby said the time for diplomacy regarding Russia and Ukraine is shrinking.
There's still an opportunity here for Mr. Putin to do the right thing and for us to engage in continued diplomacy to not have another war in Europe.
Kirby added that the U.S. has been supplying Ukraine with arms and ammunition to help defend itself. The jury in the federal hate crimes trial connected to Ahmaud Arbery's death is deliberating. During closing arguments, a federal prosecutor claimed pent-up racial anger drove Travis McMichael, his father Greg McMichael, and their neighbor William Roddy Bryan to kill Arbery almost exactly 2 years ago in Georgia. Prosecutors say a U.S. Capitol rioter who bragged he was famous should spend 90 days in federal prison. Stay-at-home father Adam Johnson of Florida was photographed carrying House Speaker Nancy Pelosi's lectern in the Capitol Rotunda during the attack. Federal prosecutors said his actions showed a sense of entitlement and privilege. Senator Chuck Schumer wants the Senate to vote next month to cap the cost of insulin. Trey Thomas reports.
The majority leader said Sunday he wants the price limited to $35 per vial, not the hundreds of dollars it currently costs. The drug is absolutely necessary for many Americans, but the price has been rising more than 15% a year since 2012.
Less than a third of Americans think the country is heading in the right direction. The Rasmussen National Survey showed only 29% think the U.S. is moving in a positive direction. You're listening to the latest from NBC News Radio. Today is the first day the New York City subway safety plan takes effect following a violent weekend in the system. More from Scott Pringle.
Police are now cracking down on fare beaters, smoking, and not allowing folks to sleep across the seats. They will also be forcing riders off trains at the end of subway lines. And part of this subway safety plan includes 30 outreach teams looking to connect homeless to help services. Danny Perlstein is with the Riders Alliance.
Whatever kind of outreach is being done, it needs to be backed up with permanent housing, with permanent healthcare solutions that actually address the problem, so there isn't a revolving door.
Over the weekend, there were numerous subway stabbings and a woman attacked with a pipe in the Bronx.
England's last coronavirus restrictions are going away. The announcement was made by Prime Minister Boris Johnson. They include a legal requirement to self-isolate after testing positive, which is going away on Thursday. Free universal testing for those with and without symptoms won't be provided anymore beginning in April. South Carolina could soon become, like 24 other states, a hands-free state. Scott Kimbler explains.
24 states, including neighboring North Carolina and Georgia, are hands-free states, meaning you cannot handle your phone while driving. At the State House, lawmakers will likely begin debating making it a law here in South Carolina. If ultimately passed, the law would require drivers to use a speaker or Bluetooth device if they choose to make phone calls while driving. First-time offenders would face a $150 fine. Each subsequent offense would be $350, along with points on your driver's license. WYFF is reporting the law is being supported by the Palmetto Cycling Coalition.
A seller fetched more than $32,000 for a near-perfect condition VHS copy of The Terminator. According to TMZ, the tape is from 1984 and was on the market for 3 days. A third-party company analyzed the copy and gave it high marks for preservation. Brian Shook, NBC News Radio.
This report is sponsored by Texas Secretary of State. Elections are coming up, Texas. Are you vote ready? Find all the information you need about the approved IDs and important dates at votetexas.gov today. Powered by the Texas Secretary of State.
Crime skyrocketing, a dangerous crisis at the border. Joe Biden's socialist agenda is hurting Texas. The choice for Attorney General couldn't be more important. Ken Paxton, he's under indictment by a Texas grand jury and is being investigated by the FBI for corruption. Conservative lawyers in Paxton's office have seen enough. They resigned, so Paxton's hired outside personal injury lawyers to handle important cases, costing Texas taxpayers millions. Texans have a better choice. Conservative Republican Eva Guzman, a lifelong Texan. She went from humble beginnings to a distinguished career as a Texas judge, where she ensured criminals stayed behind bars. As a justice on the Texas Supreme Court, Eva Guzman upheld the Constitution. She'll take on Joe Biden to secure our border and support law enforcement. Conservative Republican Eva Guzman for Attorney General. Political advertisement paid for by Texans for Eva Guzman.
1 minute you might be blasting AC/DC, and the next you're belting out vintage Madonna. Your music tastes varies, and we got you covered with your very own station, My Favorites Radio. The more you listen and thumb up the songs you like, the more personalized your station gets. Get started now and start thumbing, and the only songs that'll play are the ones you've thumbed up. Plus, you can share your station with anyone in seconds. My Favorites Radio, only on the free iHeartRadio app. Discover music, radio, and podcasts you'll love.
iHeartRadio! Donna from Louisiana. The storm just hit, and we went from donating to the food bank to needing it.
Hunger is a story we can end. End it at feedingamerica.org. Brought to you by Feeding America and the Ad Council.
News Radio 690 KTSM.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, call 915-544-KTSM or follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thanks for tuning in, however you may be doing so, on air, online, live streaming through the free and reliable iHeartRadio app, or joining us over on the social pages, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Twitch. Facebook.com/Talk El Paso is the main one. And if you're able to do so safely, if you're out on the roads, please keep your eye on the roads here. But a lot of chiming in going on here. Calvin Williams, Ed Clore, Joey Carlson, John Brazelton, Leroy Chuck, and more on the variety of issues we got talking about. It's affecting us here in the Borderland today. Elections, almost always on my mind, and I just get sad when they're not there. I guess that's the football fans, when the Super Bowl's over and you're looking at the vast nothingness of no more games until essentially not quite next year, but feels like that way. I guess that's how I might feel about when elections are over. I'm weird that way, I know, but I love talking about it. We'll break it down. What we're looking at here, a question that came in right before the break. We did have Ed Clore asking about Tony or Alma for District 23 for this Texas 23rd Congressional District. So no polling in that recent one we were looking at out of the University of Texas at Tyler and the Dallas Morning News. But some of the latest campaign finance information from, the FEC, we can delve into it here a little bit, but don't want to get too far in without mentioning we are taking those phone calls now. If you're wanting to chime in on these and the issues on the show here today, 915-544-5876-544-KTSM. And some, I'm not going to choose this to take this as a threat, but Calvin Williams is announcing his writing campaign for any seat that you want to, saying if it doesn't get elected, he will start listening to a bigger radio station. I'll choose not to take that as a threat at the moment, but Ed Clore saying that you're in for the 23rd, be prepared to serve. I love the idea of anyone being able to, even those that aren't politically savvy, being able to get into office, and have often toyed with, okay, what would the implications be if we just had, like jury duty, but for elected office, and that's how people ended up serving. It gets messy real quick, but it's nice to think about sometimes here. So a lot of comments coming in here. So Ed Clore asking specifically again about Tony or Alma for the Texas 23rd Congressional District, referring to there the current Congressman Tony Gonzalez, and then referring to Alma Arredondo Lynch. A little hard to tell about that campaign specifically because there's been nothing filed with the FEC as of the 9th of this month here. See if she gets in a report. Next deadline for the final campaign finance report, 7 days out of the election, I believe, is coming up tomorrow. So see if anything gets filed there. But the only other one filing being Alia Garcia Ureste, again, all in the Republican primary ballot here. Looking pretty strong when it comes to this. Again, as much as you can divine from campaign finance numbers versus actual votes, it's still stacked decently in the favor of the incumbent, Gonzalez, looking at having received about $2.5 million for this race, with about $1 million left on hand. Compare that to Alia Garcia Ureste receiving about $120,000 with about $12,000 left on hand. So whether or not that's drawing dead, I guess, is up to you, but doesn't look great for the other candidate. But again, from Alma Arredondo Lynch, no data has been available there. So whether or not that's a filing, a mistake or error in that, can't say that for sure. But so no real analysis able to be done there. So, but it does look decently likely like there will be favorable towards Tony Gonzalez here. Well, this does bring up, looking at this data, some of the on the Democrat side of the ballot here, looking the strongest one there, looking to be John Lira out of those that have filed anyway, with about $268,000, so $270,000 having raised there, but only about $11,000 left in cash on hand, so blown most of that already. So the night has got enough left in the tank. Then for the general, also remains to be seen here, and the only other one listed on the FEC site, Priscilla Golden, nothing. No process data in this period, and same with the independent Francisco Lopez Jr. So that's a little bit, again, not exactly polling of likely voters and registered voters within this district, but snapshot, sneak peek, divine what you will from it, what this might mean for those heading into the actual primary, and then, of course, the general election, looking pretty in favor of the incumbent there, kind of any way you slice it. So that's just one of the major issues we're looking at today about how the elections and such are shaping up, because there's more to be done and more to get to with all of this here. One of the other issues that has been affecting me personally is housing prices. El Paso Link with a good piece on that today, saying rising home prices squeeze middle class. Essentially, the real kicker for me in looking through this was that back end of 2019, that for particularly median households here in El Paso, of the median income, they were able to earn about 8% of houses currently are now considered affordable to that bracket, and previously the next highest income bracket, about $50,000 to $75,000. Pre-pandemic, able to afford about half the houses in the area, and now that's dropped to about 32%. So this fits straight in with some of the conversations we've had with the editor over there at El Paso Inc., Robbie Gray, about the squeeze coming with, like, looking at rental properties, with the average rental now looking to be about $1,000 in town. Just technically like 900 and change, but still pretty dang, I mean, it's getting up there. I'm glad I kind of got mine locked in as it is, but looking at, making some of those changes and differences and what that'll mean for, potential purchases of new homes, just kind of terrifying. There was an interesting bit of analysis that I've heard recently, because there's a whole lot of talk that comes along with this, and just disclaimer here for you, not a financial advisor, not a realtor. I have no qualifications to be able to talk about this, so don't take anything I say here as gospel. But that's, a lot of the conversations end up coming up in this space about housing market crash, that, I'm going to wait for the crash. The prices are too inflated. There has just been a crash. There's a crash coming, and therefore I'm not going to do it. And the flip side of that is that, again, I'm not totally sure I buy this, but curious to know what y'all think, that there has already been a crash. It has been a crash of the supply, because even going into the pandemic, there was a shortage of about 5 million houses that people, according to the data that is collected on this kind of thing, would have been willing to buy. And that has now even climbed to closer to like 7 million, depending on the sources you look at. So that the idea that there's already been a crash, but it's rather of the supply, that the supply has just not been able to keep up anywhere near the demand. And that's the reality we're living in here. Be curious to know y'all's take on that as well. And Leroy Chuck saying, I support a generational voting. That way I can blame my parents. Get blame about the murals too. And Ed Cloroponing that, Gonzalez over $1 million in cash on hand, and Alma Arredondo Lynch, no data. So can't talk much about the one you're curious about there, but hey, maybe we'll get closer with these next reports due tomorrow here. I was going to those calls on the line here, so if you wanted to call in, that number to do so, 915-544-5876, 544-KTSM. Do have Raul in the Northeast on the line here with us right now. Raul, thanks for joining us.
Hey, Andrew. I was in the real estate business for many years and also a mortgage lender. And I wouldn't hold my breath for, prices to crash. And we've had downturns in the market, and in certain markets where they went up run up a lot, like in California and also in the Wash-Bosch area on the East Coast, they had significant adjustments to the market because it went up so much for so long. But El Paso usually hasn't been that way. We did have a downturn after the housing crash. I know a couple of people that got caught on that, bought at the high and then had to sell at the low, and got hurt. But for the most part, my advice is buy when you can. Okay, because over the long run, they're going to go up. El Paso environmentalists say that El Paso could lead on climate change with a city charter that's coming up in the November ballot. And there's a group called the Sunrise El Paso Group, and they also work with another group called the Ground Game Texas. And last week, they launched a campaign to amend the city charter to integrate citywide climate policy. And they're trying to collect 30,000 signatures by May to put the climate charter on November ballot. I would suggest you call these folks, get them on your show. That would be so interesting people to talk to. And they have three pillars for this ballot. They are increasing solar power, conserving water resources, and creating climate jobs. So that sounds like a very worthy effort. The proposed charter also calls for El Paso. Now, I really like this part. The charter also calls for El Paso to employ all available efforts to convert El Paso Electric to municipal ownership or city control. In my solution to do that, or suggestion is to convert a portion of the rate increases they periodically ask for. It's always in the mix. It's always going to happen. To convert a portion of that into equity in the name of the city of El Paso. That way they still get the money and then we get a piece of the action. Why just J.P. Morgan own this monopoly here in El Paso? They make a very healthy return on a monopoly. They get about 8 or 9% on their money. That's an excellent return on one's money for a monopoly, And studies show that ratepayers in municipally owned utilities pay lower electric bills. So we need to be moving in that direction. And that brings me to the issue of how much should a company be able to charge for its products or services? And I remember you said that you studied economics in college. And as you know, the traditional free market answer to that is whatever the market will bear. Yep. And so part of the rise of the cost of goods and services, besides the negative effects of the virus on the labor and goods supply chain, is corporate price gouging. It's been going up. They've had super healthy profits and price increases. According to this one journalist by the name of Matt Stoller, who's also a fellow at the Open Markets Institute, he estimated that 60% of the price increases that ordinary Americans are paying right now are going directly to corporate profits. So don't just try to blame the inflation solely on lockdowns and stimulus checks or other policies that were passed to help Americans keep Americans safe and supported through the worst pandemic and lifetime epidemic that we had in our country and around the world. So something to keep in mind, and we really should try to buy into El Paso Electric. Very profitable business.
I mean, that does raise the question about, since it was just recently acquired within the last year or so, I don't remember the exact timeline of the whole process of it, but that has happened very recently, whether or not that could even be possible. And I mean, it's a novel idea, the idea of converting the rate increase to equity. Given the amount of regulatory wrapped up in that, I mean, there are literally like a half dozen local, state, and, well, not national entities. Well, actually, in this case, there might be, given that El Paso Electric is actually across state lines. But the amount of regulation that goes into that, I don't even know if that could be a possibility. It's an interesting concept. Don't get me wrong. I'm just, given the amount of fingerprints left by different agencies on that, whether that could be something able to be negotiated or if it's just going to get thrown out here. So yeah, the feasibility of bringing it back or closer to where, it is local control. I mean, it was bought by a company. I think the real answer there would be is how much would they want to then basically get it off their rolls and bring it back municipally, and whether that would be worthwhile to then the average El Pasoan. I mean, that would be probably the fight of the century if city council was to be looking at. I mean, that would be, we're talking hundreds of millions of dollars instantly with that, if not more. I lost track of what the actual purchase price was at the end of it, but serious major investments, and we're still hung up on a roughly couple $100 million for that quality of life bond in the project. So if the political will was there, would be my major question. But I mean, okay, we'll have to get more into this, talk about the supply chain as well, because we are well overdue for a break. So thank you for the point in the call. If you're wanting to call in during the show, that number to do so is 915-544-5876, 544-KTSM. Back after this break with more Talk El Paso here on News Radio 690 KTSM.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
Much lighter freeway traffic for your El Paso freeways for President's Day today. Watch for an accident I-10 eastbound at Copia Street. And in the Low Valley, I-10 westbound between Horizon and Eastlake is slow and go with 17-minute delays. The I-10 eastbound ramp that connects to the 54 Patriot northbound is closed. And heads up for that blowing dust advisory. Visibility as low as a quarter mile. That's out till 6 o'clock tonight. Carrie Edwards, El Paso Traffic.
This report is sponsored by Blindster. Looking for a great deal on blind shades and shutters? Save 50% off any order during Blindster.com's President's Day sale. Blindster offers custom wood and faux wood blinds, roller shades, cellular shades, even custom plantation shutters, and they're all 50% off for a limited time. Blindster.com.
Mass Mutual knows retirement can be an uncomfortable conversation. Who's the big boy? You are. Who's going to take care of us when we retire? It's going to be you. You're going to make sure we don't end up in a retirement home. And if we do, it's a really nice one. With tango lessons. And bocce ball. And a community pool. Oh. Talk to us about retirement today. Feel comfortable about tomorrow. Mass Mutual. Live.
Hey, Mario Courtney Lopez here. We know life's moments are definitely better together.
And Smart Mouth mouthwash gives us the confidence to always be ready to make the most of these moments.
Whether in studio, on the red carpet, or around the house, having the confidence to get close is amazing.
Our lives are better together with Smart Mouth. Just 2 rinses a day means fresh breath for 24 hours.
Find it at your favorite drug, grocery, or supercenter store, or save 20% at smartmouth.com/radio.
This is Dan Patrick, proud to be your Lieutenant Governor. You know, the principles and values students learned in a one-room schoolhouse are still true today. That's why I passed a bill to ban teaching of critical race theory and stop boys from playing girls' school sports. The keys to a good education are great teachers and involved parents. I will always fight for great teachers and for parents' view to be heard and respected.
Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick, a principled conservative fighting for Texas.
Running for Lieutenant Governor in 2014, I pledged to ban sanctuary cities and fund border security at historic levels. I kept my promise. This year, I approved funding to build the wall. Texas must secure the border because Biden won't, and we must stop those here illegally from voting.
Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick is endorsed by President Donald Trump.
I am giving him my complete and total endorsement.
Political ad paid for by Texans for Dan Patrick.
Hey, hon, what you doing with your phone?
Do flowers have best friends?
I don't know.
Hey, look.
Whoa.
Some answers can only be found in nature. Discover the unsearchable. Visit discovertheforest.org to find a trail near you. Brought to you by the United States Forest Service and the Ad Council.
News Radio 690 KTSM El Paso.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, call 915-544-KTSM or follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thanks for tuning in, however you may be doing so. A lot of ways to interact with the show. Of course, we got the social pages, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Twitch. A lot of comments coming in there. Skeptic Squad definitely up and at 'em here today. But we also got phone calls that we'll take on the line here. If you're wanting to chime in that way, you can do so safely. 915-544-5876, 544-KTSM. There's a lot of issues brought up in that last call that we'll try to get to here. Some of the responses coming in. John Browson asking our previous caller to come up with a plan to lower property taxes. And also some questions about breathing patterns here. Louis Chuck saying, I love it when people blame everything on COVID. And James Radcliffe apparently agreeing with that as well. John Browson commenting on the weather situation of the moment, saying his trash can keeps blowing around, even have it turned backwards. I was happy to be out of that brownout earlier, looking outside in between the break here. Looks like it's clearing up a little bit, but yeah, you might want to bolt it down because apparently we're looking at that for the decent portion of the rest of this week. It does sound like it, and that El Paso wind and if this is the worst weather we get, I'll still take it over just about anywhere else that I've lived here. Occasional having to clean the dirt out of my teeth from having just stepped outside is definitely better than some other situations I've been involved in. Let me know if you disagree here. Again, the number to call, 915-544-5876, 544-KTSM. So a question brought up amongst other things, and Calvin Williams bring up a point about housing, that how much, or actually more specifically, was the other one, lumber prices and thefts have also had a big impact on housing prices and the demand and availability therein. It's definitely a situation here, but That question about the change to the city charter. I have talked a decent amount about how El Paso's voter turnout, I think, got slightly better for city council elections once they were standardized because, as the article from El Paso Inc. notes, El Paso city council elections used to be in their own quote-unquote nonpartisan slot because, of course, most of the things in November are going to be the ones resulting out of this primary that we're in right now that is very partisan, of course, by its very nature. But, of course, city council seats are, by design, not. They do not have the D or whatever have you by them. So that's one of the questions that's come up for the charter, again, according to their reporting, but also things about should the mayor still have veto power? And what about ethics violations, removal from committee assignments? So that could restructure the way El Paso's local politics work for a while here. This does come up, in every 10 years or so. So curious to know what you all think about that. What would you want changed in the El Paso city charter if you had the chance to do it? There's a lot of potential here. We have some vestiges of previous system, that strong mayor issue being mentioned a decent amount, but also a whole lot more. So, again, get to those calls in the line. Again, the number to do so, 915-544-5876, 544-KTSM. We have Joe on the west side here with us right now. Joe, thanks for joining us.
Hey, Andrew, how are you doing?
Doing all right there. What's on your mind?
I was wanting to know if you guys ever mentioned or discussed, because it's never on any of the mainstream news networks, the New York Times article this weekend regarding how the CDC hid information and doctored information regarding the coronavirus and the effectiveness of the vaccine. Did you happen to see that article?
Yeah, did see that article. Not something we're totally focused on this program here today because we trust our other national hosts to, definitely handle those kind of major topics here. But, I mean, that one can be drawn down a bit. And it kind of just...
I'll post it on the Facebook page, and
okay.
If you can mention your comments on it, I'd appreciate it. Have a great day.
No, sure thing. No, thanks for the point in the call there. Do appreciate it. I mean, we do have the focus that we do, and we have full faith and confidence in all the other hosts on our programming here to handle the big national stories of the day, and then we'll draw them down as we do when it comes to it with the local stories or the local impacts from them here. I mean, just having seen, some of the reporting on that and even further the focus on it, it is kind of just reinforced for me the importance of making your own decision and choices. I mean, being informed about it, sure, but I think a decent phrase is I'll usually trust a straight government release about as far as I can throw the committee that wrote it, because a whole lot of information, and there's a whole public agency and public organization trust that has just faltered recently. Yeah, I mean, I'm not surprised about it. I gotta say, we have followed it to a certain extent, and even when we were doing those daily reports, we would point out what were delayed reports because they would sometimes get rolled in. But transparency of data is an underrated concept, and one that I'm not saying it's a magic wand that you just wave and it would solve everything, but I do feel that if you just let people know what the heck is going on and then have them make their own decisions, and I can already hear the argument, well, what if they make the wrong decision? That's their prerogative. The ability to say, I disagree with you, even if the data supports your conclusion, is kind of what you're supposed to be allowed to be able to do. So, I'm not surprised about that. Kind of skimmed over it in our lineup today, but I will say just in general, I am encouraged by the direction we see ourselves moving, and then the economic impacts that come from it. I mean, I want to say I don't quote him exactly that often, but Jordan Peterson had a quote that I've been thinking about a lot lately, that growth comes from doing dangerous things carefully. Essentially coming down to that everything in life has risk, and you grow when you find out the ways to have it and manage it in your own way and do it reasonably. That's kind of what it takes to become an adult here. Edgar Ortiz asking what are going to be up on the Truth platform. We're on the major ones that allow streaming as it is. Benjamin's going to be joining that soon. But we always have a mind towards, quite frankly, where the conversation is happening. So not opposed to it. These are just the main ones we got going right now and are able to manage and keeps our arms around. But if you feel there's enough of interest, drop us a line, drop us an invite. My email, andrewpolk@iheartmedia.com. If you ever got something like that you want to. James Ratcliffe putting up some charter changes he'd like to see, public votes on salary increases, decreases, or getting rid of positions and major mandates that are placed onto the public. So that is technically already, at least in part, a part of the charter. That's why, amongst other things, there is a pretty vast pay disparity between county commissioners and city council members. I want to say that city council, when I started reporting on it, they were in like the $20,000 a year paid from it, like truly pretty much a part-time city council. I want to say they're in the 30s to 40s now. Actually, let me dig up that stat here before you over the next break. But so that's already a part of it, and that's why, amongst other things, you can see a bit of a difference in how that compensation is considered here. Kev Williams chiming in what he'd like to see about how about no spending on projects that don't start within 2 years, and no spending on projects that can't be completed in 5 years from the start date. Interesting point to be made there, and some conversation maybe we'll have coming out of this break about the point of other public agencies, because I'm sure that a counter argument would come up about, well, what about long-term infrastructure, etc. Maybe there should be non-city council entities that are handling those, but we'll get to that after the break here. Again, this is Talk El Paso. You're tuned into News Radio 690 KTSM. Due for that break, so if you want to chime in, let us know what your priorities for a charter change for the city of El Paso would be. 915-544-5876, 544-KTSM. Back after this break with more Talk El Paso here on News Radio 690 KTSM.
El Paso's News Radio 690 KTSM.
I'm Justin Cree with your CBS 4 News Update. An early morning shooting sent a person to the hospital in East El Paso this weekend. Happened just after 1 a.m. on Sunday near the El Paso County Sports Park. Police are only releasing limited information. However, they did confirm that one man was shot. He is expected to survive. No arrests have been announced. New Mexicans finally enjoying their first weekend without having to wear a mask. Last week, New Mexico Governor Michelle Lujan Grisham ended the statewide mask mandate. Although it is not required, the state is encouraging the use of face masks to prevent contracting and spreading the virus. Most families that we spoke to in Las Cruces over the weekend were excited to ditch the masks. However, the state dropped mask mandate. Places like the Navajo Nation in northwest New Mexico are going to keep them on. El Paso police are looking for more information that could lead to the arrest of 2 suspects who held up a store with a knife. It happened earlier this month. Back on February 8th, police say a man walked into the Hal's Hobby Warehouse and tried walking out with a radio-controlled truck. If you have any information in this case, you are asked to call El Paso Crime Stoppers. With your CBS 4 News Update, I'm Justin Cree.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
A lot less traffic on El Paso freeways for President's Day, and that's a good thing since the blowing dust and a blowing dust advisory still in effect until 6 o'clock tonight. Visibility as low as 1/4 mile possible. Watch for an accident I-10 eastbound at Copia Street. That's off to the right, and I-10 westbound between Horizon and East Lake. It's 17-minute delays with stop-and-go traffic. Carrie Edwards, El Paso traffic.
Gusty winds and the potential for blowing dust will be possible over the next few days as our next storm system approaches from the west. Expect a few clouds tonight with breezy conditions, along with overnight lows near 40 degrees by Tuesday morning. Coming up tonight, we'll time out our next weather maker, plus the changes it'll bring by the end of the week. From the KFOX 14 Severe Weather Center, I'm meteorologist Kira Miner.
This report is sponsored by Texas Secretary of State. Elections are coming up, Texas. Are you vote ready? Find all the information you need about the approved IDs and important dates at votetexas.gov today. Powered by the Texas Secretary of State.
iHeartRadio Earth knows small changes make a big difference for the environment. Did you know that keeping your tires even a single PSI lower than recommended means worse mileage and more trips to the pump? So do the environment and your wallet a favor and always check the tire pressure. Brought to you by iHeartRadio Earth and the National Environmental Education Foundation. To find more tips on smarter, sustainable living or to take action in your own community, go to iHeartRadio.com/Earth.
Do you promise to love, honor, and cherish, forsaking all others?
I do.
I do.
And now, by the power vested in me, I now pronounce you roommates. Go forth.
That's not the vow you took. But if struggles with CPAP have you and your spouse sleeping in separate rooms, it might be time to look into Inspire. Inspire works inside the body with just the click of a remote. That's right, just a button. No mask, no hose, just sleep. Inspire. Sleep apnea innovation.
Talk to your doctor to see if Inspire is right for you. Review important safety information at inspiresleep.com.
I love when my friends stop by, but to help keep my friends and my family safe, I always spray Lysol in my home before guests arrive and again after they leave. Nothing kills more viruses on more surfaces than Lysol disinfectant spray. Lysol, what it takes to protect. Use as directed.
On dark, foggy roads, do your fog lights provide the visibility you need? Upgrade to LEDs from Sylvania, the leader in automotive lighting. Experience how advanced optical design leads to superior down-road clarity. Visit the Sylvania website to find your LED bulbs today. This report is sponsored by Sylvania.
180 over 111, and I had a stroke. I couldn't speak or walk.
This is high blood pressure. Get back on your plan. Go to loweryourhbp.org. Brought to you by the American Stroke Association, American Medical Association, and the Ad Council.
El Paso's News Radio 690 KTSM.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, call 915-544-KTSM or follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thank you for joining us, however you may be doing so, be it on air, online, live streaming through the free and reliable iHeartRadio app, or joining us over on the various social pages, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Twitch. A lot of comments coming in there. Joey Carlson, Edgar Ortiz, Calvin Williams, James Radcliffe, and more. So if you're wanting to do that, John Brazelton, Leroy Chuck a little bit earlier, wanting to do that, more than welcome to do so. Plus, we do have the phone lines open now here through the end of the show, 915-544-5876-544-KTSM. A lot of stuff that we'll talk about here and a lot of stuff we got going on. Elections, housing costs, booze sales, a whole lot more that we're getting to here today. So looking at a lot of other things potentially as part of this, including those charter changes for the city of El Paso. So getting into this and some of the pay increases. So here's the part that I do want to get to here. I guess to take what James Radcliffe was talking about, public votes and salary increases, that it could probably be taken a step further, because I almost always end up forgetting, because I've, I guess, kind of chosen to block it out, is, the pay for certain city employees that well outstrips anyone below them. I mean, Tony Gonzalez, the salary for him, according to El Paso Matters reporting late last year, or middle of last year, actually, I believe is still current on that, looking to about just shy of $400,000 for that position. Yeah, a little bit up there. And the last increase I can find approved by voters for El Paso City Council, reported on by, amongst others, El Paso Times, that city representatives make about $45,000 a year compared to the $29,000 they made. At the mayor sees about $67,000, just shy of $68,000. So compared to that, the six-figure across the board that county commissioners do, and then, well, those employed by city council technically, how much they make. So there's some decent questions to be made. And some other questions coming in about that. But get into those calls in the line here as well. Again, the number to do so, 915-544-5876-544-KTSM. Do have Ed on the east side here with us right now. Ed, thanks for joining us.
Yeah, Andrew, I get annoyed by all these daggone noisy exhaust on these cars, especially your Challengers, your Chargers, your Mustangs. I seen city council supposed to meet, I think, tomorrow, and noise ordinance was on their agenda. I hope they bring that up. It's just too, I don't know, maybe I'm just getting old. Does it bother you?
I actually did notice that today, oddly enough. We were out in Northeast at a mattress firm in support of President's Day. And yeah, actually, I believe it was a Charger went by me, and I thought I was going to get hit by it. It was so loud, but no, I was just going by rather slowly, actually, but it was a little bit loud. I mean, it might be a little bit about age. I mean, I don't know if the rock and roll analogy applies. If it's too loud, you're too old. But I mean, there's a level I'm willing to accept, and beyond that, I'm going to get perturbed as well, absolutely.
Oh, man, if everybody's exhaust is like that, we couldn't hear nothing. Well, you got a good show. Thanks a lot for letting me blab, and Raul let us down today. He didn't mention Trump. I was really let down by that. All right, later.
Thank you very much. I appreciate the point in the call there. I took that as a positive. I mean, again, I hope against hope that all of our callers will bring up interesting, unique, and relevant points to our area. So I took it positively that we had an interesting discussion to be had. I know that there are plenty out there that love the beat down drag out that comes along with it, but I mean, it can't rain every day, right? Or at least it's not supposed to, in my mind. So that's just to appreciate the point in the call there. I guess I don't find the allure of having just the loudest pipes. I mean, there are ways I've seen that people put out there of how to make your tailpipe even louder with is just the exact opposite I would want there. If there's one thing I'm potentially looking forward to of the advent of electric cars and what that might mean, it would be potentially the elimination of that. But that's more of a silver lining, an otherwise pretty dark cloud for the moment here. So I'm not holding my breath on that either. Time will tell. Anyway, more comments on the line here also about Jim Blatt asking about Council of Commissioners using Delphi Technologies. I will admit I'm not too versed on that one here, but if you wanted to comment over there, facebook.com/Talk El Paso or the other social pages, a good way to do it. And just got the article finally pulled up in front of me here that the previous caller asked about when it came to the CDC. It does irk me a little bit that they weren't putting out all the information. I mean, I am well on record as saying that you should put out pretty much all the information. I mean, sure, stuff that is of literal national security, like troop deployments, loose lips sink ships is still a very persuasive mentality there, but everything like just shy of that. I err on the idea of put it all out, let people come to their own conclusions, but make the data accessible so that if anyone has questions, they can go and see it for themselves here. And so I am reminded of that situation that there was a state level scientist of some position or other that within the last year was calling out against the state of Florida, saying that they weren't putting out correct or complete data, and that made its own headlines and waves that way. So if there's not the similar kind of response to this, saying that, well, you're not putting out the full story there, I'm going to be, well, not surprised, but definitely disappointed when it comes to it here. The other factor that does come to mind from a previous call that we just had is also about the whole pandemic shortages, everything that comes with it. I can't remember it was jeans for me. I have been trying to get finally found the kind of jeans that I like. I was trying to place an order for them online for the longest time and was able to get like one or two, but orders kept getting canceled due to just lack of supply. I was able to finally place essentially a bulk jeans order because I've been putting it off for like 2 years at this point, and they got some holes. So that was my personal bit of it. But it is on the flip side that besides the COVID issues and blaming it all in there, it does seem that there are more than a couple of companies, including the ones that people have to interact with in our area, that are posting those record profit numbers. Now, sure, there's a part of that comes down to, well, inflation has gone up so that they are having to charge more for it. So we're looking at a percentage rise potentially, but still literally record numbers outside of even what could have been called simple percentage and, adjusting for inflation increases. Just serious amounts of money being made while we're constantly being told that now that this isn't available. You can't do it. So Kelvin One's asking Wranglers. I do the Wranglers. This is not an endorsement, but if they want to pay me, I will accept it. It's just the ones I go with here. Completely off topic there, I do admit, but hey, you like what you like, right? So getting back to some of our major topics of the day here that we've been going over, we are looking at, again, that charter changes. I think that'll probably be the sleeper story of this next year or so, or however long it takes for that process to fully be completed. I assume that it'll come down to an eventual vote. I mean, probably nothing on the order of the total change that we saw in the city charter from the strong mayor form of government to the city manager form of government. And I think that there's still plenty of discussion to be had on whether that was good or not, whether that has worked out, or if there are further changes that need to be made to that. Technically, there are a lot of possibilities within this process, but ultimately does come down to what the current city council is willing to consider, except for, I don't even know if there would be the possibility of an extraordinary effort of citizens to put something on the ballot that way. I mean, the last time that happened, it was decently narrow in scope. The Lost Dog Trail is the last one I can really consider that has happened with. So there is the potential for some political will to go there, but that was also a decently narrow issue, pretty well communicated within that part of the community, and a lot of activists. I mean, it was a clear, concise, and not a, hey, here's this really complicated issue that we need you to vote very carefully on. That just kind of doesn't work out for the general electorate. So I will be excited to see what the possibilities are, and if there are more things that come forth. I mean, the entire point of that process, even if you may disagree with some of the specifics being brought up here, is going to be that citizens should have input on how their government works. Absolutely. So I'll be looking closely at that as we have more updates on what is actually going to come down to potentially voting on by you and me for the El Paso City Charter. We will see. Some of the other things we got coming up for you this week, we'll get into here a little bit later after this next break here, coming around the final break of the hour. Again, if you wanted to chime in, we'll take another call or two before the end of the show. That number to call, 915-544-5876-544-KTSM. Back after this break with more Talk El Paso here on News Radio 690 KTSM.
News Radio 690. Traffic all day.
A lot less traffic on El Paso freeways for President's Day, and that's a good thing since the blowing dust and a blowing dust advisory still in effect until 6 o'clock tonight. Visibility as low as 1/4 mile possible. Watch for an accident I-10 eastbound at Copia Street. That's off to the right, and I-10 westbound between Horizon and East Lake. It's 17-minute delays with stop-and-go traffic. Carrie Edwards, El Paso traffic.
This report is sponsored by Texas Secretary of State. Elections are coming up, Texas. Are you vote ready? Find all the information you need about the approved IDs and important dates at votetexas.gov today. Powered by the Texas Secretary of State.
What's done more to improve overall health and wellness? Modern medicine or personal hygiene? Actually, it's both. But considering that bathing went mainstream in the 1800s and brushing your teeth in the 1900s, isn't it time for something new, like cleaning your nose? After all, your nose is the body's air filter for trapping dirt and germs, the first line of defense against allergens, bacteria, and viruses from getting into your lungs. But how do you clean your nose? With Novage. Novage isn't medicine, it's more like plumbing. Novage uses powered suction to pull saline in one nostril to the very back of the nose where germs can get trapped and multiply, and then out the other nostril, flushing out mucus and microbes so you can breathe better, sleep deeper, snore less, and stay healthier. Join over 2 million others and find out for yourself how refreshing and easy to use Novage is. At Novage.com, Walgreens, CVS, Rite Aid, Bed Bath, and Target. Novage. Clean nose, healthy life.
Here's Joe Biden's strategy for the border crisis.
There will not be another foot of wall constructed in my administration. In the first 100 days of my administration, no one will be deported at all.
Biden's reckless border policies have emboldened dangerous drug cartels. Listen to Tarrant County Sheriff Bill Wayburn.
There's a clear and present danger. It's deadly fentanyl, and it's killing our kids. How's it getting here? Through our southern border. That's why Governor Abbott's deployed the National Guard to assist law enforcement at the border. He's given us new authority to arrest trespassers. He's increased jail capacity to handle criminal arrests. Joe Biden should be securing this border, but he won't. That's why Governor Abbott is getting the job done.
Governor Abbott is endorsed by the National Border Patrol Council. On March 1st, vote for Governor Greg Abbott, securing the future of Texas.
Political ad paid for by Texans for Greg Abbott.
City streets or small towns, everyone deserves a clean, green community. We are Keep America Beautiful, the nonprofit working to end littering, improve recycling, and beautify communities. Let's do beautiful things. Visit KAB.org.
News Radio 690 KTSM.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, call 915-544-KTSM or follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. Your host, Andrew J. Polk. A few things we're working on you here on the program for the coming days and weeks. Of course, elections on the mind here. Working on some of those things for the other candidates here, but specifically tomorrow, going to be talking with the one of the regional VPs for Schneider Electric, one of those companies that has made the decision to do major investment, or in their case, reinvestment in our area and town, because they, see the potential benefit that comes from it. Part of, frankly, a spate that's been going on with that. So get his perspective on exactly why that decision was made and what they see as the implications here. Again, of course, last week or a couple of weeks ago now, Schneider Electric announcing they were going to build a new plant in El Paso that will employ an additional 400 workers. So in aggregate. Like each individual one of these are sure not bad things, but kind of gets a little bit of like, okay, so what? Something new coming to town here will make a big enough difference. But in aggregate, I do have the contention that given the amount of outside area companies wanting to buy up things in El Paso or the reinvestment or the expansion of, it's something that has been kind of an undercurrent for years, really, going on of El Paso being this whole centrally isolated. I mean, all the taunts and calls that come with, why don't we have a Buc-ee's? Why don't we have a Trader Joe's? Why don't we have all this stuff? Is because there hasn't been the investment to make it viable for people to be here. So, Frank, as much as you may or may not like the company, investment by big national concerns like Amazon may be turning the tide, or at the very least getting now other companies to say, okay, what do they see here? And maybe we should do the same thing. So that's more than I'm going to ask the gentleman from Schneider Electric there tomorrow on it, but it's kind of a narrative that has been fitting in for a while here. So that's one interesting one that we're going to be getting into. Again, more candidates and potential, also things with El Paso Children's Hospital and such, a lot of it going on here. So we'll take another call or two if you want to squeeze in at the end of the show here. The number to do so, 915-544-5876, 544 KTSM. Otherwise, some of the biggest stuff we've been talking about here today, including the housing market changes. I have lost track. I should have been keeping tallies, but I have just kind of defaulted to a please don't contact us again every time it happens. The amount of calls I have gotten of people somehow finding my cell phone number and asking, hey, do you want to sell your house? A, I don't own the house I live in. B, why are you doing this? Why is this like this? And I did ask the name of the concerns that were calling there for a bit, but they weren't always saying who they actually represented, or it sounded like a shell kind of company name. But I've also gotten letters. Like, it has been pretty incessant. So one of the stories again by El Paso Inc. out there about what is going on with the housing market, showing that there is a lot of movement and a lot of pricing out of some people. I kind of teased the number there that we were looking at, essentially a move for the median housing market price in El Paso, that most of the median housing income here is just under $50,000. So that according to data from the National Association of Realtors, that from 2019, 21% of the available houses in El Paso were affordable for that median income, and now it's just down to 8%, as reported on by El Paso Inc. So serious changes and challenges that we are still looking at, and the demands I don't see going away anytime soon. Yeah. So getting please one more of those calls on the line here. We do have Mark on the east side here with us. Mark, thanks for joining us.
Hey, how's it going?
Doing all right there. What's on your mind?
You know, the what's been on my mind recently was the announcement of Schneider Electric coming into town.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I've attended some hiring fairs here, and they were one of the members there, and it was just astonishing to me that 2-year level graduates in engineering type degrees, and those companies only pay maybe $10-13 an hour. That just to me doesn't seem commensurate when students are leaving college with $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 in debt. So I don't know, maybe that's something to address, or maybe that's something to talk about. But that's just it just doesn't seem commensurate at all.
No, I mean,
yeah, that's all that's on my mind.
No, that's the thing. It's a good point to bring up here, because I mean, there has been a change of where a college degree across the technical stuff has always been a bit more in demand, but it used to be a conception that a college degree would essentially be guaranteeing with your ability to continue working and such, ability to be within essentially the middle class. And that has really fallen off the last, it's hard to pinpoint exactly, but I mean, that has also been a consideration going on in town a bit of, yeah, we've announced new businesses coming in, and previously the ones I remember the most of being like call centers, saying like, okay, sure, this is more job, but how many more, $10 an hour part-time work is really going to benefit the area? So it is a point to be brought up, and one that we can make here. Calvin Williams saying, unfortunately, if you want to make more money, you'll have to leave El Paso here. Don't know if I totally believe that, but I do think that we need more investment in town. What I will say to your point is this, that Schneider Electric has already been in town. You can actually see them. They're the building just east of the Westtown Marketplace, behind like the Walmart and like the Five Below, whatever that store is over there. So I do appreciate the point in the call. It is an interesting point to be made about, okay, what is the experience they're requiring versus the compensation being offered with that? And frankly, is that working out for them currently? So may interject that here a little bit. And James Radcliffe saying maybe they should move to New Mexico since education will be quote unquote free there now. That's also been an undercurrent what New Mexico has been doing when it comes to a lot of education related issues here, but we'll have to get into that more at another point here. So just to bring it on home, looking at the construction and the issues going on with that, I'm a little apprehensive about diving into that market myself, absolutely. But we'll talk more about these and other things in the upcoming days and weeks as we will. Yeah. Kevin Williams also saying I don't mind the equity I have that I get just because of the rising costs. That is what I'm looking at. Again, I am not a realtor. I'm not a financial advisor, but I mean, there might be bad times to get into a market, but things do in general seem to be going up. And it's the best time is probably, I kind of look at it as the tree analogy. When was the best time to plant a tree? 20 years ago. When's the next best time to plant a tree? Today is the way I think of it. Kevin Williams also chiming in that for the trade jobs, you can make good money for this area sometimes, but you want to make as much as away from here. That is unfortunately a situation we have. So maybe that is a conversation we need to have more about what we do look at the pay for El Paso. I mean, there has been a somewhat of mentality of like, I don't know, almost plantation mentality of sometimes in the past. I don't feel like it's that much in place anymore, but whenever I remember just growing up, someone saying, oh, what do you love about El Paso? Oh, the labor costs are so low. As if that was a thing to tout. As if that was like a beneficial thing to anyone besides you. So maybe there's more conversation to be had there about that here. Ed Clore making a point about making a point about aerospace engineers starting at $75K and warehouse folks substantially less. I am happy with the way my college experience worked out. I've molded it into what we do here. But I think anyone just getting a degree, irrespective of what are they going to do with it, I mean, there's a certain thing to be said about freedom of choice and all of that. But pragmatism is also an undervalued kind of ideal within the modern world here. We're going to have to leave it there for today because we are out of time for this program. So I want to thank everyone who did tune in, call in, comment, participate in the show here today. It's not a requirement, but y'all do help make this show and help mold what we talk about and the ways we go about it. So I do personally appreciate it. Otherwise, I've been your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thanks for tuning in. All the ways. We'll do it again tomorrow, 4 to 6 p.m. right here on News Radio 690 KTSM. Again, more interviews, more topics, more discussion about the things that affect us here in the Borderland. So stay safe out there. Look twice for motorcycles when out on the road, and have a great evening, y'all. Stay safe out there. See you tomorrow.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
I-10 westbound between Horizon and Eastlake, you got stop-and-go traffic with delays, 17-minute delays. Got a crash Lafayette Drive in Esther, just south of the 10 Gateway in East El Paso. Police on the scene. Roadwork this week affects